Cancer 5. An automobile wrecked by a train. This is to do with the operation of karma, as they say. Karma is an idea that whatever we do, we'll have to pay the price. If you play, you pay. And this is the other side of the question of free will. That free will operates in the world, in all the worlds, and yet the downside of free will is that we must take responsibility for anything, everything we think, we do, and we feel. There is no free ride whatever in life. Never. No such thing as a free meal. And the wisdom is for us to know about that before it's too late. Whatever it's set in motion tends to continue until completion. That's the nature of things. And if we set something in motion, even in childhood, as a young person, the implications of that will stay with us until completion is made. So on a very simple level, if you eat too much, you're going to get fat, typically. If you don't exercise, you're not going to have a strong body. On this very simple level, whatever it is that we do has an implication, a cost. And it would be absolutely foolish for us to ignore that. And yet people do. They take on behaviors, they take on habits that cannot be sustainable. They know they are not. And then wake up at some later age in life, in your 40s or your 50s or older, to realize that what was done in your 20s has a cost. This applies to everything, not just how we treat the physical body. It applies to every relationship we have, every unkind word, every gesture of disdain. Anything we do is going to come back to us. And, of course, those who are irresponsible or immature will find this to be a burden, a serious burden in life, that which makes life unenjoyable or dire or heavy. But it's a real gain, a real advantage for a true spiritual seeker. And this is because it is quite difficult for us to understand the implications of what we do. We just no way of seeing it. In this dimension of the earth plane, things are disguised because time exists. So we do something now and we have a result later, and we can't immediately see the connection. The story of the worm Ouroboros tells of this, where there's this worm biting at its tail. It's so angry that it's biting, gnashing its teeth in anger. And the reason that it's angry is because somebody is biting its tail. So we cannot know that what we're doing is having an effect if there is a distance. The length of the worm in this story is time. If it was immediate, if we saw the immediate effects of what we did, then we probably wouldn't do quite a lot of things that we do. If every time you took a cigarette, you noticed your lungs were getting less capable, and you started to cough more immediately, and so on. If it was immediately painful and consequential, you may not do it. So what is the wisdom here? Well, the wisdom is to think before you act, and to think in the long-term sense, not to do anything which is downright reckless, and to take the wiser course of action. Within the teachings of Hazrat Inayat Khan, it is said that pleasure is rarely worth the price. Food for thought. Most of what we do for pleasure costs us dear. We have some temporary moment of release of boredom or release of stress or whatever, and we take some pleasure, maybe a drink or a meal or whatever, a relationship, and we just do it for the pleasure of it, and there's no intention to think long term. But if we did think long term, we wouldn't do it. And the advice that we have here is to remember that there is a part of us that wants to do the right thing, wants to do the right thing for ourselves, to treat ourselves properly. And it is rarely the case that pleasure is doing that. The exception, of course, is when you moderate your pleasure to a reasonable amount, and you don't do it very often, and you don't do it to extreme very often, and you do it in keeping with the normal way that people are. If you go beyond that and indulge in the habitual pleasures of the type that's normal in our society today, there will be a cost. And if you look around, you can see that a lot of people in the West are seriously overweight. They die young because of that. They have a very uncomfortable time in their later years. And this is created by the habits formed in your 20s, typically. Each of us is subject to this. We've all got into bad habits, even if it's the habit of thinking negatively. And yet we can reverse that. And we can reverse that by taking ourselves a little bit more seriously than we are. And remembering that there's what they say in sporting metaphor, it's a game of two halves. It's no good taking all your pleasure in the first half of life, because you spend the second half of your life paying for it. And that's not fun. That will not give you joy. It's not a good strategy. Be a bit more responsible with your pleasures.